We will struggle with an age-old, yet forever current, and even more importantly, perhaps the most crucial question of our time. And it will end with us asking ourselves, will our species survive or die out like the dinosaurs? More specifically, in the struggle between the current powers of life versus death, keeping in mind Freud's paradigm-shifting observations about the human psyche relating to all humans' lives being drawn out against the background of each person's inner struggle, caught between the opposing forces of Eros and Thanatos, more specifically life and death, more simply life and death. And specifically, and this involves the point that made this in his insight paradigm-shifting, that each of us carry within us a will to live. Nothing earth-shattering there. In fact, I think I will explain why his insight was so earth-shattering. Because he says we have a will to death. But in him saying he has a will to live, well, in fact, he's stating nothing more than the commonsensical beliefs of the masses, indeed the mainstreams, and I mean here even globally, or as they say conventionally, the universally held, the mainstream's voices, near definition of what humans are, of what we are, even what characterizes us above all others. And here, they'd even be wrong, going too far. For would anyone say that other species don't also have an incredible will to live? But this hyperbole, or overreaching, reinforces my point about Freud's ideas being zeitgeist shattering. For in this common, frequent, pervasive, even universal, and nauseatingly repeated promulgation of supposedly the obvious by any and all who speak before an audience, large or small, from a principal speaking in front of a gathering of high schoolers or a preacher before his audience of churchgoers, to the TV media pundit before a worldwide audience, and even to a U.S. president's audience of even greater global reach, is shown that it is not so much true, else it would not need to be constantly reinforced and upheld, as if against some attack or attacker. And if so, what is the feared attack or attacker? And here we get a clue into Freud's discovery and its utter undermining of all that being said. For this kind of protesting too much, and its flip side of repeating ad nauseum, as Shakespeare obviously saw, points to a hidden agenda. Truths do not have to be repeated endlessly, mantra-like, even ritualistically, for they are self-evident, need as much propping up as the belief that the sky appears to be the color blue to us. And you don't hear much about that, do you? But the pervasive repetition, or the supposed truth of our species' will to live, especially the blown-up version that has it being that which makes us human, different from other species, superior to other species, now there's a clue, and even, quote, special, there's another clue, getting it, points to its being not so much truth as dogma, which does need to be endlessly repeated, and that such things are exactly about things that are not obvious truths. But even beyond that, since we are not dealing here with any written or standardized set about things that are not obvious, for indeed, in its repetition it is put out as something not needing institutional backing, simply in its obviousness. So what then? Well, this repetitive characterization of us as humans has all the indications of something that has an intention, that has a calculation about it to achieve an effect on the audience. In this case, the masses of all humans. What is that intention? Well, let's take a look at what that effect might be. Well, anytime you place our species above others, above all others, true or not, you're making as much a play to butter up your audience and play to their vanity, and thus making them feel good, hoping that they will feel good towards you, or like you in return. In common speak, that's called people-pleasing. In their vernacular, it's called sucking up. Speaking about politicians, you'd call it patronizing. Okay, so we've established that people in front of audiences near universally want to say things that will make their audience feel good towards them. No, not so fast. For that overlooks the fact that somehow, and get this, for if the spoken thing were of the obvious truth category, then why would this follow? That somehow all these people know that saying such a thing will, in fact, give people a good feeling? That's another clue. And again, continuing the Socratic dialogue, well, wouldn't humans just, of course, feel good hearing about them being superior? Doesn't everyone feel good when told they are better, etc.? Well, now we're getting to where Freud, for he knew, as we all do if we simply think about it. For the answer is no, not necessarily, or even usually. Think about it. If the Beatles were to be told they were a good band, would that give them a good feeling? No, certainly not. For that was so true as to be overwhelming and almost scary in its near universal belief to them. For having that kind of power and influence, especially when you come out of nowhere from humble, unassuming backgrounds, had to make them wonder about this power and its source and where it would lead and all that, or take the obviously accomplished anybody. Pavarotti, yeah, Pavarotti. Want to tell him he sings good? Don't think he'd feel a thing. Might even be insulted. But you say that's because they hear that all the time. Okay, granted that, but think about when it would have felt. Look to your own experience, and you realize that you feel good when people tell you things about yourself, especially when they state them as self-evident and obvious to all, about which you are not certain, about which you often, or at least sometimes, have doubts, and about which you are insecure. Look to your own life. Can anyone be flattered about the things they know to be without question? Can you be flattered about the color of your skin or hair or, well, no, not stated as fact. Only if the person has some bad feeling in that area first. And second, the fact is not stated, in a case where the fact is just not stated, but that it is somehow good, positive, or superior that you have that kind of skin or hair or whatever. So my point is, the things that are obvious, and then you said, oh, you know what? Guess what? You're a human being. I mean, would that be flattering? No, it would do nothing. So, skipping to the point here, people can be made to feel good about things that they are not sure of. They will feel good because the thing they would want to believe, the thing that would make them see themselves positively, the thing that would feed their slanted bias towards themselves, okay, I'll finally use the word, the thing that would prop up and feed a person's ego, or the belief in one's goodness, superiority, and so on, in a world of so many others. Well, that makes one feel good, whether it is true or not. So we see that the intention is to salve the egos of the masses. Why does it feel good? Because it's universally true that the ego is in a constant assault from something which makes it feel not good. What is that thing that makes people feel not good about themselves? So that being told something that counters that would make them feel good. Well, the answers by psychologists, since Freud, have many terms attached to them. And by the way, before the psychologists, there were the theologians attempting to answer this. But Freud's analysis not only answered, but he put it in the largest context possible, one in which both psychologists and theologians would find an inroad to it. But we can say, to backtrack a bit, that this pandering by those in front of audiences makes people feel good because it supports the defense system that all humans have erected against the real truth, the one that Freud first explicated. It feels good because it supports the denial that all humans have against the real truth that they feel. So this repetitive, obvious truth about humans having a strong will to live is repeated to please audiences and make them feel good, people-pleasing, because it is a salve to the egos of the masses, which in reality are not merely bruised. No, this goes directly toward propping up a particular defense, a particular denial that we all carry. And that denial is that, in truth, humans don't at all feel like they have a tremendous will to live. Why? Well, how many things do you know you do which are not good for you? How many things do you not do which you know would aid the cause of our supposed universal desire to live, and to live as long as possible? The point is that humans, along with a will to live, which is undeniable, also have a will to die. How many times have you woken up, thought about all the pressures and obligations or complexities, responsibilities, thought about all the seemingly insurmountable obstacles or challenges that you were facing, have thought about all the things that just have to get done, yet you feel that you could not possibly have the time to do all of them? How many times have you woken up and felt overwhelmed with what life has become and not wished to just curl up, go back to sleep, and never wake up again? How many times? In fact, think about what Frost said. The forest looks lovely, dark, and deep. Now, why would he say that? But I have promises to keep. What is he talking about? He's talking about wanting to die. And he's saying, but I have promises to keep. In other words, I can't die. I'd like to die. So there's right there a will to die. A wish to die. How many times in your own lives, and looking at people around you, how many times have you taken to drugs or intoxicants in full knowledge of their negative and even dire concomitants, and simply thought to yourself, oh, what the hell? If I were to die, so what? What's so great about life anyway? Or with less clarity, simply say, well, nobody lives forever. Do they sound like the pronouncement of a species that has a tremendous will to live? No. In fact, alongside of our will to live, we have not only a will to die, but even a will to self-destruction. Now, the intention is not to repeat all that Freud and psychologists have said in showing how this works. Anyway, just look at the evidence around you of addiction, chronic accidentalism, chronic undermining of things that you want to do by undermining perhaps the people around you that could help you. at just the right moment, doing the wrong thing to screw things up for yourself or your loved ones? Are they just bad luck, or are they something that makes you not want to feel good, not want to go into the light, not want to keep things struggling, want to keep things hard, want to keep things suffering, or want to continue a self-destructive path which somehow feels easier than the path of the light? So, unhealthy behavior, addiction, unhealthy behavior habits without number, and of course the ultimate evidence, suicide. And by the way, if we have such a strong will to live, superior to all other species, then explain why it is that we are the only species that has suicide, and we're supposed to be the conscious ones. So anyway, what Freud pointed out, which has had tremendous explanatory power, especially now in our current depression recession, near environmental collapse, wars and terrorism, nuclear armaments of planetary annihilation, and tendency to pollute body as well as environment, and even to do it thoughtlessly, having heard of the consequences. So Freud established that we act out of will to live, and to be in the sun, to have fun, to love, and to like goodness and health and truth. But he also saw that we have at other times an opposite feeling, which causes us to want to live in the dark, to not be around other people, to shy away from life and light, the light, and being seen and recognized, and even to wanting to be lonely. It causes us to not care about fun, to hate and be angry, indeed to hate everyone, and even to want to lash out at them for no reason other than what might be self-labeled as spite. It causes us to hate goodness, calling things kumbaya moments. It causes us to be jealous of others who are more giving and to hate them for that, calling people goody two-shoes or saying something is schmaltzy or saying that all that good stuff is just drama and putting out terms like bleeding heart liberals. It causes us to beat up on our bodies and abuse them with all kinds of substances and behaviors, and causes us to not care about the truth, but rather to say things instead to hurt, get revenge, to get back at, or to say untruths to get advantage, to disable our competitors, to hide from the evils we commit which enslave us further in the hiding of them, and so much more. Freud said we struggle between these two opposite feelings throughout our lives. It is because of this contradiction that we carry inside that we can never be truly sure of who we are, and even that we can question our motives and intentions, those more self-analytical of us, of course. It's because of this contradiction that we can always feel that we could have done better, that people don't know everything about us, even when they say they do, and that sometimes we fear, especially when we are younger, that if people knew what we had inside, they would shy away, not like us, think us to be bad, even monstrous. It's because of this contradiction that people are so terrified of revealing themselves, lest some of that not socially appropriate, socially sanctioned, socially approved part of themselves slip out. And the fear is, then we will be seen to have been found out. And that, then, we will be confirmed in our worst fears that indeed that other part of ourselves is, the heart that cannot even be spoken in one's mind, that dark part of ourselves, is the real us, which carries with it the view that any of the good in us is just a cover-up so that other people will not know. Well, that's a horrible thought. But Freud took it beyond our inner struggles and talked about how the events of the world, the actions and movements of history, the dramas of all the ages are in fact the products of this inner struggle. Therefore, that we join together with others of the same feeling, whether of lightness or of negativity, in multiple relations and groups on both sides of that struggle, and in complex ways that often represents these groups, as well as ourselves acting out from one source but masking itself as the other. Ultimately, these groups magnify our powers, and the cumulative acts of many individuals, along with the actions of groups and their leaders, all with complex and contradictory motives at all levels and in every matter, create the complex events of all times, which at base are all the story of complex conflicts notwithstanding, and cumulative, and over time convoluted and twisted and complicated through the actions of the myriad characters, all of whom conflicted inside act inconsistently, and out of their own inner struggles, which have all of us perceiving and interpreting things in ways totally unique to ourselves. So these huge world events then, he laid at the feet of the individual struggle. Then basically at that point, the world then also becomes the acting out of the will to life against the will to death of Eros versus Thanatos. So that is why I say that this thing that we will be discussing is dealing with an age-old question that has become currently of the most immense importance and consequences as to the winner of that inner struggle. On one hand, our lesser selves are currently taking us on a path that leads inevitably, one way or another, to total species extinction. And not just that alone, but in fact total life extinction on this planet, and possibly even to planetary annihilation, the destruction of this planet itself. So that is why I say that we're talking about the Matrix, but about its existence as an element of the current struggle between Republicans, media flunkies, huge corporations, filthy rich, and the shadow government, as over against the power of psyche, truth, love, manifesting in increasing numbers of lives. The questions we need to ask are, which side will win in the end? For certainly it will be decided one way or the other, and soon, of that which we can be sure. And that is what makes this time and this question different from any other time, because this question is not an academic one now. It is one whose answer will become known far sooner than we would ever wish. So, we will continue to live and we will become good citizens of this planet, and our species will continue on. True? False?